The man who built this house put a room in it that does not appear anywhere in the county records, and I lived here 11 years before I found it. I was running a wire for a new outlet in the back bedroom. I put my drill through the wall, and it went through and kept going, and there was no resistance on the other side, and there should have been 8 inches of dirt bank and then nothing. I cut a hole big enough to put my head and a light in. 4 feet by 9 feet, floor to ceiling, dry as a bone, with a plank shelf on the long wall and a mason jar sitting on it with a lid rusted onto it. No door, not one anywhere. The only way in was the way I had just made, and that meant the way in had been closed up by somebody who meant it to stay closed. My grandfather bought this place in 1931 from a family named Witt, and I had thought for 40 years about which one of them built that room, and what walked up the road that made a man decide his family needed somewhere to go that a stranger could not find. Number 4 on this list killed a child in Perry County in 1938, and the family never told anybody how. And I'm going to tell you exactly why it happened, so you understand what these things actually were. Number 1 is not a room at all. It is the reason none of the others ever got found. And once you hear it, you will understand why a man would hide a thing in the one place everybody walks past. My name is Burl. 72 years in these mountains, and I have been inside more of these than I can count, because when the old people die, the family calls somebody who knows the houses. These were not built for fun. Understand that before we start. They were built because of the revenue man, because of the war and the men who came through it, because of what a bank did to this county in 1930, and because in a hollow with one road in. The only thing between your family and whatever came up that road was how good you were at not being where they looked.
Let me give you the 4 reasons plainly, because the reasons are what makes sense of every trick on this list. The first one is whiskey.
The federal excise tax on distilled spirits goes back to 1791, and it never went away. And a man in these mountains with a corn crop and no road to a market turned that corn into something a mule could carry. That was not a crime to him. It was arithmetic. It became a crime to the government, and from about 1870 on, there were men whose entire job was to come up this road and find your steel and find your money. The second one is the war, and I do not mean the fighting. Eastern Kentucky and East Tennessee were split households, and what came through here was not armies, it was bands of men on their own account, taking what they wanted from houses with nobody home but women. That went on for years after Appomattox because the men who learned to do it did not stop. The third one is 1930. The banks in this part of the country went down and took people's money with them, and my grandfather was one of them. He lost $460. After that, an entire generation in these mountains did not put money in a building with a sign on it, and if you do not use a bank, then your house is the bank. And a house that is a bank needs a vault. And the fourth one is simply that help was an hour away on a good day.
There was nobody to call. The plan had to be something you could do yourself, in your own house, in the dark.
Before we start, subscribe. What you are about to hear is history, not a how-to. Most of it is illegal now, some of it was illegal then, and a few of these will kill you. Let us count down. Number 25. The loose floorboard, and the one thing everybody gets wrong about it. Everybody knows about a loose board. It is in every movie. What people get wrong is which board. You do not use a board in the middle of a room. A board in the middle of a room is where feet go, and a board where feet go will announce itself the first time anybody walks across it. You use the board that runs along the wall, under the bed rail or behind the chest of drawers, because nobody has stood on that board since the house was built. You also cut the nails, you do not pull them. You cut the heads off the underside and leave the shanks sitting in the holes, so the board still shows 4 nail heads in a row like every other board in that floor. A man looking for a loose board looks for missing nails. He is not going to find any. Number 24. The cedar chest with the shallow bottom. Every house had a cedar chest, and every cedar chest had quilts in it, and a man searching a house opens the chest, sees quilts, pushes his hand down through them to the bottom, and moves on. His hand hits a bottom about 4 inches before the real one. The false bottom is a plain plank panel with cleats, and the whole trick is that it has to be dirty. A clean board in an old chest is a sign, and everybody who did this knew it, so the panel got rubbed with the same cedar dust and lint that was already in there.
My aunt kept $200 and a pistol under hers from 1934 until she died in 1971, and 3 of her 4 children never knew.
Number 23. The stair with the hinged tread. Somebody in about 1890 figured out that a staircase is the only piece of a house that is hollow by design, and after that, in these mountains, half the staircases had something in them. The bottom stair is the wrong one to use because it is the one that gets sat on. The good one is the 3rd or 4th from the bottom, and you hinge the tread at the back and let it lift like a lid. The tell is the front edge. A hinged tread has to have a hair of clearance to lift, and that gap is the one thing a careful man would see. The way they beat it was to run that same gap across every tread in the flight, so the whole staircase looked like a staircase with worn treads instead of one stair with a lid. Number 22. The knee wall in the attic. Any house with a pitched roof has a triangle of dead space where the rafter meets the floor, and in the mountains that space runs the whole length of the house on both sides. You board across it at 4 feet, and now you have an attic with straight walls that looks finished, and behind that board there is a crawl space 18 inches high and 40 feet long. The way in was almost never a door.
It was one board in the darkest corner, held by 2 screws with the slots turned to match every other screw in the wall.
Number 21. The double pantry. You build the pantry shelves 8 inches shy of the back wall, and you close the back of the shelving with boards, and now the pantry has a wall that is not the wall of the house. 8 inches is not much. 8 inches is a rifle, a jar of money, and a coat, standing up. The reason it worked is that a pantry is full. A man opening a pantry is looking at 40 jars, and 40 jars is what he sees. He is not measuring the room. Number 20. The dry well in the cellar.
A stone cellar in this country almost always has a hole in the floor somewhere, and half of them are not wells.
They are the hole the man dug looking for water, hit rock at 9 feet, and quit. You leave the stone collar. You put a plank cover and a bucket on it. Now you have a 9-foot shaft that reads as a well to anybody standing in the door, and a well is a thing men look into and never climb down. You dig your chamber sideways at the bottom, about 6 feet in. I have been down 2 of them. Both were bone dry and both had a shelf cut in the rock, and one still had a coal oil lantern sitting on it with oil in it. Number 19. Behind the chimney.
A stone chimney 4 feet wide on the outside has a flue in it about 14 inches across. Everything else is rock and fill.
The men who laid those chimneys knew that, and in some of these houses, they built a void into the mass on the room side and closed it with a stone that sits on a ledge instead of on mortar. You have to know the stone. From 2 feet away, there is nothing to see, because a stone chimney is 100 stones that do not match. There is a reason this one shows up so often, and it is heat. A chimney mass runs warm from October to April, whether anybody is home or not, and a warm, dry cavity will keep paper money and a gun oiled for 50 years. Every other hiding place in a mountain house fights damp. This one does not. And I will tell you now what this one did to people, because number 4 on this list is going to come back to it. Number 18. The hollow log in the yard. Not everything went in the house, and this is the one people forget. A big chestnut stump, hollow, standing in the edge of the yard where it had been since the blight, with a cut of log set down on the top of it like a plug. You lift the plug, and there is a dry cavity 3 feet deep with a crock in it. The blight killed the chestnut in these mountains between 1910 and 1930 and left standing dead trunks on every farm in this county. A whole generation had free hiding places standing in the yard, and they used them. Number 17. Under the porch, on the joist. You do not dig under a porch.
Digging shows. You nail a shallow box to the underside of the porch floor, up between 2 joists, tight against the boards.
A man who crawls under a porch is looking at the ground, because that is where things get buried and the box is over his head. Number 16. The false cistern. 2 cisterns, and one of them has a pipe running to it that does not come from any roof. The second one is dry, and it always was, and has a ladder pinned to the inside wall. The reason this beats a dry well is that a cistern has a heavy lid that is supposed to be shut, and shutting a lid behind you is normal. Number 15. The potato hole that was not. Every cellar has a bin of sand with potatoes in it. You put a wooden box in the bottom of the bin, fill over it, and the potatoes go on top. Simple, and I'll be honest with you about this one. It is the worst on this list. Sand is heavy and damp. The box rots in about 4 years, and what is in the box rots with it. I have opened 2 of these, and both times what came out was black paper that used to be money. Number 14.
The beehive. Yeah. 10 hives in a row along the garden fence, and one of them has no bees in it. Yeah. Nobody searches a beehive.
I want you to sit with that a second. A man can be perfectly willing to tear the plaster off your walls, and he will not put his hand in a bee gum, and every farm woman in these mountains knew it by 1900. The dead hive looks like the others because it has comb in it, and the comb is old and dark. You lift the whole super off, and the chamber is underneath. The one thing you have to get right is that the hive cannot be obviously dead. A gum with no traffic at the entrance on a warm day is a gum somebody will eventually open. What people did was keep the empty one in the middle of the row, so the bees going in and out on both sides read as one working line of hives to anybody standing at the fence. I know a woman in Letcher County who kept her husband's pension check in a bee gum for 9 years for exactly this reason, and her own grandchildren who ran all over that place barefoot every summer. Never once went near the hives. Number 13, the hearthstone. The stone in front of a fireplace is the biggest single stone in the house, and it is the only one nobody ever thinks about because it is under your feet while you are looking at the fire. You set it on a bed of dry sand instead of mortar.
It weighs 200 pounds, and it takes a bar and 2 men to lift, and that is exactly why nobody lifts it.
Underneath is a box in the dirt. The men who did this understood something about searching that took me most of my life to see. A man searching your house is looking for what is out of place. A hearthstone is the most in-place object in the whole building. Number 12, newspaper on the walls. Everybody in these mountains papered the inside walls with newspaper against the wind, and a papered wall is a solid-looking surface that is actually just boards with paper over them. You cut through the paper along a seam, take out the board behind it, put your business in the wall cavity, put the board back, and paste 1 sheet of new paper over the cut. The whole wall is 100 sheets of paper of 100 different ages. One more means nothing. Number 11, the double corn crib. A corn crib has slat walls so the corn dries, and a slat wall is a wall you can see through, and that is precisely why it works. You build the crib 18 inches wider than it needs to be, and you run a second slat wall inside the first at one end, and you fill the space between them with corn. From every angle, through every slat, a man sees corn.
The chamber is under the false floor of that end, and you get to it by moving about 3 bushels. He can see through your walls.
He is going to believe he has looked. Number 10, the springhouse ceiling. A springhouse is stone. It is cold, it is damp, and it is the last building on the place anybody would keep anything dry in. That is the point. You lay a plank ceiling under the joist, and you leave a foot of air above it. Cold air sits low. The spring water keeps the floor at 52 degrees, and that foot of space up under the roof stays dry all summer because warm air rises into it and moves out through the gable. The man searching stands in there for 4 seconds, gets cold, sees water, and leaves. Number 9, the coffin. I am not going to soften this one. Families in this county kept a coffin built and stored, usually up in the barn loft, because when somebody died in July, you had about a day. Every farm had lumber laid by for it, and a lot of them had the box already made.
An empty coffin in a loft is a normal object here, and it is the single most untouched object on the property.
I know of 2 that had a false bottom. Number 8, the chicken house. A chicken house floor is filth, and I mean that plainly, and there is no man alive who wants to dig in it. You put a shallow crawl under one end, board it, and let the birds do the rest. Within a month, there is 4 inches of litter over it, and it does not look like a floor at all. It looks like the inside of a chicken house. Number 7, the room behind the built-in wardrobe. Some of the better houses had a wardrobe built into the wall of a bedroom, and a built-in wardrobe is a box inside a wall, and a box inside a wall has a back. You hinge the back panel. Behind it is the space between that room and the next, and in the house with a chimney stack running up through the middle, that space can be 4 feet wide. This is the closest thing to an actual hidden room on this list, and it is what I found in this house with a drill in 1979, except that the wardrobe had been torn out sometime before my grandfather bought it, and the panel had been nailed shut and papered. Number 6, the dugout under the barn floor. A barn floor is dirt, and a barn is full of animals, and animals move dirt around all day. Fresh digging in a barn looks like nothing. You take up a stall floor, dig a chamber, plank it, and put the horse back over it. A man with a probe rod can push it into a barn floor all afternoon and find nothing, because he is going to give up before he gets to the stall with the animal standing in it.
Now it changes. The last 5 are different, and they're different in one specific way. Everything I have told you so far is a place.
The last 5 are not places. They are ideas about how people look at things, and the men who worked these out were doing something I would call psychology if they had ever heard the word. None of them ever said any of this out loud. I have never once heard an old man in this county explain why a hiding place works. They knew which ones worked and which ones got found, the same way they knew which spills drained, and they passed along the answer without the reason. I spent about 30 years finding the reasons myself, mostly by watching people search. Number 5, hide it where the search already ended. This is the one that changed how I look at all of them.
When a man searches a room, he starts at the door and works around, and the place he finishes is the place he came from.
Nobody searches the doorway. The doorway is where you stand while you decide the room is clean. So the casing around a door, the head jam over your head as you walk under it, the 8 inches above a door where the wall is furred out for the frame, that is where a lot of it went. I have found 3 of these, and every one was in the last place I would have looked, which is exactly the point, because I searched the way everybody searches. There is a second half to this that took me longer. The same thing is true of the whole house, not just a room. A man walks in the front door and works his way back, and by the time he gets to the back of the house, he is tired and he has decided what kind of place this is. The best stuff in these houses is not in the back bedroom. It is in the front room, within 8 feet of the door he came in through, in the part of the house he walked through while he was still deciding where to start. Cleaning out my aunt's place in 1996, we spent 2 days on the back of that house and found nothing. The money was in the front room. It was in the window seat under the cushion her mother had sewn, 11 feet from the porch steps, and 4 people had walked past it about 200 times. Number 4, make the way in dangerous and make it look like an accident. Now I have to tell you about the child. In Perry County in 1938, a family had a chamber behind a chimney, the kind I told you about at number 19, and the way in was a stone that lifted out at the back of the firebox. You reached in past the ashes and lifted, and it opened into a void beside the flue.
Their boy was 7. He went in after something, and the stone came back down. That is what happened. That is the whole thing.
It was not a trap, and nobody built it to hurt anybody, and the family did not tell anybody how he died for 2 generations. I am telling you because these get romanticized, and they were not romantic. A hidden room is a hole in a building with no second way out, and a hole with no second way out is a grave that has not filled up yet. Every good one had 2 exits. The ones that killed people had one. And the second way out was almost never a door either, because a second door is a second thing to explain. It was a board you could kick from the inside, or a floor panel that dropped you into the crawl space, or in the better ones, a shaft up into the knee wall of the attic. Something that only opens from within, and only once, and ruins itself doing it. If you are ever in an old house and you find one of these, that is the thing to look for before you put any part of yourself inside it. Find the second way out first.
If there is not one, do not go in, and I mean that as plainly as I know how to say it.
2 people a year still die in this country in old cellars and shafts on their own property. The man who built the room in this house left a second way. There is a plank in the floor of that chamber, and under it a drop into the dirt crawl space that runs out to the north side of the foundation. He thought about it. Whoever built the one in Perry County did not. Number 3, give the searcher something to find. This is the one that separates the people who thought about it from the people who just dug a hole. You do not build one hiding place. You build two, and you make the first one findable. A loose bore with $40 under it, a tin in the flour barrel, something real, something worth a little, something that takes a man about 10 minutes to turn up. Because a man searching a house is not looking for your money, he is looking for the end of the job.
The second he finds something he can carry out and call a result, the search is over in his head, and he goes.
My grandfather kept $11 in a coffee can behind a stone in the smokehouse his whole life, and it was there to be found. It was never found because nobody ever came, and he was a little disappointed about that. The amount matters, and he was particular about it. Too little, and the man keeps going, because 40 cents is not a result, and he knows there is more. Too much, and you have just told him this is a house with money in it, and now he searches harder and he comes back. It has to be exactly enough to be worth the trip, and not enough to suggest a second trip. $11 in 1935 was about 3 days of work. That was his number, and he arrived at it the way those men arrived at everything, which is that somebody up the road got it wrong once, and everybody watched what happened. The same idea shows up in how they handled the still. You did not hide one still well. You kept a poor one where it would be found in an afternoon, a half-mile from the good one, and you let them break it up and write it down and go home with the story. Number 2, hide it where looking makes the looker look bad. Here is a thing about a search. Somebody is watching it happen. If the revenue man is in your house, your wife and your children are standing in the room, and there is a whole set of places he can look at that will cost him something in front of him. A woman's clothes chest.
The bed she just got out of. A sick person's room. A baby's cradle. The family Bible on the stand by the door.
A man doing a job in front of a family will hesitate for about a second and a half at each one of those, and a lot of them will not do it at all, because he has to live in this county too, and it will be told. The Bible is the one. I have seen 3 Bibles in this county with the block cut out of the middle of the pages, and one of them was still in use on Sundays, and the woman who used it knew exactly what was in it and read out of it anyway. And there is a harder version of this that I want to be careful about, because it is the one that worked best, and it is the one that says the most about what people here were willing to do. You put it in a room with the sick person in it. A man will not search a bed with somebody dying in it. He will stand in that doorway, and he will look at the floor, and he will ask his questions from the hall, and he will leave. And if he did search that bed, the whole county would know his name by Sunday, and it would follow him. I know that was done here. I know of one house where it was done with a man who had the consumption, and the money was under the mattress he died on, and it was still there when they burned the mattress, and his wife got it out of the ashes.
I am not telling you that because it is charming. I am telling you because it shows you what the calculation actually was.
These were people deciding how much of their own dignity they would spend to keep $40, and they spent it. Number 1. The best hidden room is the one that has an ordinary reason to be closed. Everything else on this list is a trick. This one is the principle underneath all of them, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. A hidden door is suspicious. A door is not suspicious. So you do not hide the door. You give the door a boring reason to be shut, and you let the reason do all the work. A room shut off because the chimney in it is cracked and the family closed it up. A cellar half filled with dirt because it flooded in 1927 and they gave up on it. A pantry nailed shut because of a smell nobody could find.
A door with a bed shoved in front of it because the room has no stove in it and nobody uses it in winter.
Every one of those is a normal, checkable, uninteresting explanation that a man will accept and repeat to the next man. You are not hiding the place. You are removing the reason to look at it, and a reason not to look is worth more than any false wall anybody ever built. That is what was done in this house. The wardrobe came out, the opening got boarded and papered, and by 1931 there was nothing to tell my grandfather about, because as far as anybody left alive knew, there was no room. The lie outlived the people who told it. It outlived the reason for it. It was still working 48 years later when I put a drill through it by accident. I want to leave you with the part I actually think about. Somebody built that room with his hands, at night probably, and he never told his children where it was, or he told one of them, and that one did not tell theirs. Whatever he was afraid of came and went, and the fear went out of the family, and the room stayed. There are houses all over these mountains with a room like that in them, and the people living there do not know. If you have got an old house, go stand outside and count your windows, then go inside and count them again. If the numbers do not match, somebody in the past made a decision, and you are living on top of it.